The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome back to the Star Sport podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Mangan, joined today by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose Credit Union, choose local, choose community. Now, a couple of weeks on from winning his second Olympic gold medal in Paris, you could have forgiven Paul ODonovan for taking a bit of time off to recharge, to rest, to let everything sink in. But instead, he jetted off to Canada, where he has won his 7th world rowing title. And if that wasn't enough, he also started working as a junior doctor in the interim. So he's a busy man. And today I thought, Kieran, we'd have a chat and try to answer the question, is Paul ODonovan the greatest Irish sports person of all time? There's obviously lots of contenders. We're probably a little biased here down in West Cork, but for good reason. So I thought we'd have a chat about that. But to start off, 7 world titles, an incredible achievement yet again.
Yeah, there's an inevitability about Paul ODonovan once he gets on the water, Dylan. Like, he's just, like, he was born to row, he was born to race. He does it better than anyone else. And he's just, like I said, it's inevitable when he's in a race like that. More often than not, he'll win. You know, whether he's in a single, obviously on his own, or in a double. Now with Fintan, and before that with Gary, like, kind of just look at his record, look at his medal haul over the years, and that's 7 more titles since 2016. Like, to go with these 3 Olympic medals, like, he must be the most decorated Irish sports person, considering what he's achieved. And this is at a world level. That's not taking into account his European titles and so on. But he was just brilliant again at the World Championships in Canada. I put up a clip after the heat, his first race in Canada, the heat, and after he crossed the finish line and he was rowing back to the bank, and there were still other competitors going across the finish line. You know, he won it like by Jesus, with more than open water to spare, and he's just you just knew even in the final on Saturday night he was 6th after 500 meters, 2nd halfway through, but then once he decides to go, no one can live with him.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed as well, like, aside from how good he is on the water, which is like that kind of speaks for itself at this stage, but we always talk about like how much he loves rowing and how like he is genuinely just obsessed with rowing, and that's why he is the best, or that's part of why he's the best Irish rower ever. But there's kind of, from the outside looking in, there seems to be a little bit of a change in him in the last year. Like, we saw the huge celebrations after he won the gold with Fintan at the Olympics, and he had the same kind of he was jumping for joy again after winning in Canada. And it kind of seems that from the outside, maybe he's allowing himself to enjoy those wins a little bit more than previously. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, he's definitely celebrating these wins. Why that's down to, it's kind of hard to know. Like, he's always celebrated the wins, and he's always kind of made a point of saying, like, he gets his, obviously he gets enjoyment from winning, but he gets his overall enjoyment from that day-to-day love of rowing, because Paul has said before that if you were rowing just for those 1 or 2 moments when you're on top of the podium, it's almost not enough to sustain you through it all. Like, you need more than that. And what he's more than that is, it's the fact that he loves rowing. He loves going to training every day. He loves testing himself and challenging himself, and it all kind of pays off, I suppose, in terms of those big moments. And I remember the Olympics kind of with Fintan, like, there's great photos of Paul like leaping into the air, you know, and that's not really a Paul we've seen too much over the years. It's just why I'm not too sure. I'll be quite honest, but there is for a man who's won so much to still be finding so much enjoyment in the celebration, I think it is a great sign of where he's at in terms of the sport. It's like he's not getting worn out by it. He's 30 years of age now. He's been rowing since he was 7 or 8. He's been winning world titles since 2016. And for all his success, he's still enjoying rowing. He still loves it. He still has that same passion for it. And I think that's key to him. I think that's key, that enjoyment of rowing, because at 30, there's a lot to come yet for Paul. You think of rowers, you can go late into your 30s, so there's a lot more to come. So I think, we're kind of I think it's great too to see him having fun up there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really enjoyable to watch, kind of for us to see somebody, first of all, succeeding at that higher level, but then enjoying it as well. And like, kind of moving on to the conversation of, is he the greatest sports person of all time? I know your answer to this. So do you want to share that?
Yes, he is. I'd be kind of quite emphatic. I know this is so subjective, and every sport will have their favorite sports person, and they're obviously well entitled to that, and they're well entitled to put forward their arguments why so and so they feel so and so is the best Irish sports person. There probably isn't. Well, there isn't a correct answer to this. Like I said, it's so subjective. No. We can speculate all we like, but I just think for what Paul has done in terms of transforming a sport in Ireland, it's hard to think of a figure like that you can say they transformed our sport, and they've also won this incredible amount of medals as well. Like I mentioned, there are 3 Olympic medals and 7 world titles. That's 10 major world medals, all by the age of 30. And those 3 Olympic medals, just to break it down, that silver back in 2016 with Gary O'Donovan in Rio. They were the first ever Irish rowers to ever win an Olympic rowing medal. In Tokyo, then a few years later with Finton, they were the first ever Irish rowers to ever win a gold medal. And then, obviously, Paris just gone. Paul and Finton defended that gold medal. So Paul is the first Irish sports person ever to win Olympic medals at 3 different games. And even from that alone, that's 3 firsts that he'll always have. The first Olympic rowing medal, the first Olympic rowing gold, first person to win the 3 medals at 3 different games. Like, straight away, you're talking about a kind of a generational athlete who has achieved something that no Irish sports person ever has before. And straight away, that elevates you to a whole new level. So in terms of the medals that he's won, but just the impact that he's had on Irish rowing, he has, like, Irish rowers before Paul and Gary came along, at an Olympic level, they tried to win Olympic medals. They just came up short. There's been heartbreaking stories over the years. But what Paul and Gary did in 2016 is they broke that glass ceiling. They showed it is possible to be an Irish rower and to win an Olympic medal. And all of a sudden, the bar was moved. The expectation levels were raised, because we were here like, okay, we can win Olympic medals. Okay, where can we go from here? And where we went from there was gold, and where we got from there was gold again. So it's just been incredible, that impact that he's had for Irish rowing and that community, and just taking it to a whole new level, but also bringing rowing into almost the mainstream Irish sport, because rowing is a minority sport, but he's brought it into every household in the country. Like, you could even see the reaction on social media last weekend, Dylan, to Paul's latest success. Like, the amount of people kind of saying he's the GOAT, he's the greatest of all time. Former GA President Sean Kelly retweeted a post I put up, kind of even just giving his endorsement to Paul O'Donovan as the greatest that there was. So this is a Skibbereen rower, a man from Lisheen, who grew up just a couple of miles outside the town, who has just transformed Irish rowing and elevated it to a whole new level. And he's done that by his talent, his hard work, his determination, his ethic, his dedication to the sport. So I just think, when you're looking in terms of greatness, he just ticks every box.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned it, like the way he transformed rowing. I think that's actually, like, the medals speak for themselves, and you list out the medals and you just go, okay, yeah, he is the greatest. But it's when you add in the kind of more intangible stuff that I think it gets really interesting, because, like, when I was growing up, the only memory I have of rowing growing up is, do you know the film The Social Network, about Facebook with the Winklevoss twins? Like, that was, if I think about rowing as a kid, like, that's all I think about. Whereas now, like, every single person in Ireland, you say rowing, they say Paul O'Donovan, and that's like a really powerful thing. So he's definitely raised the profile, and even, like, you mentioned rowing's a minority sport, and it is a minority sport in terms of numbers, but like the number of countries around the world that
Mhm.
row is huge as well. Like I think there's 150 countries that have rowing federations now across the world. So it is a worldwide sport in comparison to things like maybe rugby, which are maybe like a bigger profile and bigger in Ireland, but in terms of like worldwide participation may not be the exact same. So I often find the kind of, especially around conversations about the kind of greatest of all time and stuff like that, I often find that the talk about kind of participation or kind of where the sport is in the world is a really, that's probably the most difficult one to get around, because like lots of people listening might say Roy Keane is the greatest because he's the best Irish soccer player of all time, and everyone in the world plays soccer, so to get to that level you have to be incredible, and of course you do. But it I think that kind of does maybe a little bit dismiss the achievements of people in so-called minority sports. Like there's plenty of minority sport athletes, like even like golf is a minority sport, but Rory McIlroy is one of the greatest golfers of all time, or greatest Irish sports people of all time. Sonia O'Sullivan, athletics is a minority sport, but she's one of the greatest Irish sports people of all time. So I don't know what you think about that, like the fact that I don't think that should dismiss somebody's claim to that title, you know?
Yeah, 100% right. But if you're looking to, like you said at the start, we're slightly biased here in West Cork, kind of elevating Paul to the kind of the level of the greatest Irish sports person of all time. But in that rowing community internationally, and I'm talking about people who know they're rowing and are part and who know who the best are, they hold him in such high regard. We had a piece in the Star before the Olympics with Michael Schmidt. He's Swiss rower, rowed at the Olympics in 2016. He's won medals at the highest level, and he's no doubt Paul ODonovan is the greatest lightweight rower of all time. In the conversation, is the greatest rower of all time. We've had Martin Cross from Great Britain on this podcast before, and he said the same thing, that Paul is just different level to the rest. So I think it's important in the conversation as, yes, here in Ireland, we think he's just a class apart, but that's also the internationally held view as well. You know, not many rowers have ever done what he's done in terms of world titles and medaling at the different Olympic games. Like we've had the Sinkovic brothers from Croatia. I think in Paris there, that was their fourth Olympics in a row where they won medals. So Paul is kind of, and they're heavyweights. So in terms of lightweight rowers, Paul is the greatest Olympic lightweight rower of all time. That's beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like, and that's just incredible. So it's just I think it's important that conversation, that in that international world, it's like there's huge respect for him. You know, there's a massive respect. So like I was saying earlier about ticking the boxes, like he does tick so many boxes. And you're right, likes of Roy Keane, Sonia O'Sullivan, incredible sports people in all their sports. And you could never dismiss what they've achieved. Like for Roy Keane to become and you're right, I think the greatest Irish footballer of all time is incredible, and they were top class in their sports as well. But if you're looking at, let's say, Roy Keane, for example, best Irish soccer player of all time, but then you're saying, oh, he was brilliant, but Messi, Ronaldo, you know, they were better footballers than that, isn't, you know, kind of, you're looking at Paul ODonovan, best Irish rower of all time, and you're going to okay, let's say the lightweight rowers in the world, and he is still the best of all time, you know, kind of Sonia O'Sullivan, one of our greatest ever athletes, but you go beyond that, and there was kind of better athletes than her at a world level. But then you're talking about Paul, when you're going into that kind of that world conversation, you're like, who was a better lightweight rower in the world ever than Paul ODonovan? I mean, when you're at that level, it's like, Jesus, like this fella's quite good, you know, kind of.
Yeah.
Not only are you the best in your country, but when you're kind of genuinely spoken about as one of the best in the world ever, I think that's kind of that's a wow conversation, you know.
Yeah, it's funny as well, like we say Roy Keane's the best Irish soccer player of all time, but like there's plenty of contenders for that as well, and that like lots of people might say Paul McGrath there, do you know? So like it with those conversations, that's opening an even further kind of worms, because there are so many contenders for the title of best Irish soccer player or best Irish rugby player or things like that. So yeah, like he is so dominant, and One thing I find really interesting about, you mentioned like the respect that he has in the rowing community, kind of worldwide. I would have thought that like people would hate him because he, like, if you're racing him, you're not going to win. I would have thought that would um kind of foster amongst his competitors kind of this sense of, oh, like, Christ, we're racing him again. Like, I can't do this. Like, what's the point? Whereas, like, you saw after the race, at the weekend, he was raised on the shoulders of, I think it was the Greek rower in second. I can't remember who came in third, but like
He's
they
third, yeah. They lifted
yeah,
up with it. Yeah, you're right, yeah.
yeah. So like that just goes to show, like they're there kind of celebrating his greatness as well. Whereas it would be very easy for somebody to resent him in that position as well.
Yeah, we've spoken before and written about it that when rowers line up against Paul, whether he's in a double with Finton or in a single, they must think, oh Christ, kind of, I'm like, it's a battle for silver here, and that's just the reality of the situation, because the man is that good, and his record speaks for itself. But I think there's just pure respect for him. Like, you're talking about a genuinely great sports person, genuinely great rower, and I think kind of, or it's like footballers kind of sharing the pitch with Ronaldo, kind of, it's like rowers in the same race as Paul O'Donovan. It's inevitable of what's going to happen. You're still going to do your best. Like, there has been off days where Paul and Finton didn't win races. Kind of various World Cups over the years. But I think another kind of another indication of Paul and his mindset is in when it matters, when it's a world championship, so when it's an Olympics, like when it really matters, he turns up, and himself and Finton turn up, and they deliver. And I think that's just a kind of another indication of where he's at. Kind of, he knows, he has that experience, he knows what to do in the big stages and the big races and the big days to deliver the performances that get the results. And it's that consistency, talking about what makes him so good. It's consistency over that period of time. 2016 was 8 years ago, and we're 8 years on, and he's after another kind of world gold and Olympic medal double. It's just like he's put together 7 world titles between 2016 and 2018. And even though each year we kind of document him, it's like all of a sudden you're like, Jesus, that's 7 world titles since 2016, like, where's he been kind of pulling these out of? But it's his consistency over that period of time. And on top of that, while studying to become a doctor, I don't know how the man was able to fit everything in to kind of remain the best in the world, and to study to become a doctor, and just to do everything to his level of excellence. It's just it just marks him out as just kind of on a separate level to everyone else.
Yeah, completely. And I was reading just before we came on the call to the podcast today that at the Irish Indoor Rowing Championships this year, he set a national record for the 2,000 meters on the ergometer, and he became the third lightweight man to break 6 minutes with the time of 5:58. And I kind of thought, okay, well done. But doing a bit more reading on that, like that achievement is almost as incredible as winning as many world titles as he has, because like the only people who break 6 minutes over that amount of time are heavyweights, whereas he's obviously about 25 kilos lighter, lot shorter than a lot of heavyweights are 6'4", 6'5". So to be able to even like physically have that power and that kind of lung capacity to get to that speed and hold it for that long is, like, aside from titles and everything, is kind of an insane thing to kind of wrap your head around as well.
It is, like, there's so many pieces to the jigsaw, is in what makes Paul O'Donovan so great. Like, we've kind of talked about his mentality and his approach and all that, but he's physically just a beast. Like, he's a machine on the water. I've described him before as like a beast in the boat. And even like if you talk to Finton, like, Finton will admit, like, trying to keep up with Paul in training is a tough slog. Kind of, Finton was chatting recently about the workload they were doing ahead of this Olympics, and he goes, there was a couple of weeks where Finton hit 400 kilometers on the water a week, which was his most ever, and he did that for a week or two. And Finton said Paul is doing that and more, and Finton actually couldn't sustain that pace, and he actually kind of one of the reasons where he kind of tapered off earlier this year, he was got injured and was a bit sick. He just couldn't sustain that level of training. Whereas Paul did, fucking Paul just soaks it up. Like, so he's just an incredibly tough sports person. Mark O'Donovan, who rode for Ireland before, another Skibbereen rower, was telling me before that he just has this ability to soak up the training and the mileage more than everyone else. And at one stage then, that it caused the training program to be changed almost, because if Paul can do this, let's change the program if we can all do it. And they couldn't. He said, like, Paul was kind of, what I think Mark's quote is like, we were all hanging, we were broken, and Paul wasn't even on the doorstep of getting tired. You know, so like there's all these tales over the years of what Paul has been able to do in terms of training and rowing, and kind of just that pain and suffering that he can soak up, and he just gets on with it. And it's almost that attitude in that just get on with it attitude. And he's like, yeah, this is part of it. And I'm always interested, Dylan, when it comes to kind of West Cork and so on, is that why is this region creating so many incredible sports people? That's across all different sports, not just the rowers. Look at Jack Crowley, Gavin Coombs, John Hodnett in rugby, in Yabreen, and so on. You go to Phil Healy, and even now Nicola Tuttle with Darren McElhinney in athletics, and Brian Hurley and all these people in football. It's just, why is this region kind of creating so many incredible sports people? And it's almost that kind of country, just get out of that attitude. I think when you're from West Cork, you really have to work almost that extra bit harder to kind of get to where you want to go, because you don't have that kind of instant access to your facilities. So if you were a Phil Healy, for example, like there's been no athletic track in West Cork ever. So she, even as a youngster, had to travel outside of West Cork to train, you know, kind of with the rugby lads. They had to travel outside of West Cork to get access to the top facilities with Munster and so on, you know. With the rowers, like they've had to travel up to Farron to kind of, you know, you've had to have that work ethic. You've had to have that want as well. Like, you know, you have to want to do what they do and have a real passion for it, to kind of, to be able to go to those lengths, because they've had to go to longer lengths than, let's say, someone in Cork City would have to go for, someone born kind of with the facilities on their doorstep. You know, in West Cork, you need that want to do it, that drive, that determination. And importantly, you need that support around you in terms of your family and your clubs and so on, and the volunteers involved, just to kind of give you the base to go do what that God-given talent that you have. So there's so many parts to the jigsaw. And I think with Paul, it's just, like I said earlier, just ticks everyone. It's just been incredible to watch over the years.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said there about kind of facilities as well. And obviously, being in Skibbereen, you have great access to the River Island, which is a great rowing river. But a lot of the time in sports, especially in kind of Olympic sports, success follows funding. Whereas with rowing and with Paul, it was the other way around, really, like where suddenly he was successful and therefore they had to really fund rowing in Ireland. And he, like, rowing in Ireland now is really well funded, and he's a huge part of that. And even like kind of in that context as well, we've been to Skibbereen Rowing Club, and like it's not a 5-star spa hotel kind of a facility. It is very basic, might be the wrong word, but it is just belt and braces. Like, let's get in there, let's go to the gym, get on the rowing machine, get on the river, and kind of ties back to what you said about that attitude of let's just get this done. But it is interesting that Paul's success has kind of bred, you mentioned earlier, what he's done for the sport, kind of in the national psyche and the way everyone thinks about it. But what he's done for the sport in terms of getting money into the sport is incredible as well.
Yes, yeah, like I said earlier, he's opened rowing to kind of, it's took a minority sport into the mainstream, you know. And then politicians will jump on board whatever bandwagon they need to jump on board, depending on whatever time of the year it is, and if there's an election and so on, even more so. So what he's done, he's just kind of, he's helped shine that spotlight on rowing. And if that leads to more funding, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because like all Irish sports, no matter what they are, they need more money, they need better facilities and so on. You talk about the facilities in Skibbereen Rowing Club, like you said, they're not, when people think of the grandeur of rowing clubs, Skibbereen isn't that, you know, kind of, it's not, and that's with the greatest respect to the club, but it's a club that's about the people and the mindset more so than the access to these top of the range row machines and so on. Like I think it's the community again, and the volunteers and the coaches in Skibbereen Rowing Club that have made it what it is. And Paul came into that at a very early age. You know, he came into a club that had Olympians there, and the likes of Eugene Coakley and Timmy Harnedy as well. And that's as much as Paul is a role model for so many young Irish rowers now, and indeed I'd say so many young Irish sports people, Paul had his heroes growing up as well, the Eugene Coakleys and the Timmy Harnedys, and that's kind of an important kind of part of the conversation in terms of those early years for Paul ODonovan, because as much as he shows now it's possible to win Olympic medals, the likes of Eugene Coakley showed it's possible for Skibbereen War to compete at an Olympics. Eugene went to Sydney in 2000 in the sub, and then he rowed in the lightweight four final in Athens in 2004. So Paul has had that kind of access to role models and heroes, and it's that kind of classic, if you can see it, you can be it. And Paul is that classic example now, kind of imagine being a young rower in Skibbereen now, and in your club you've Paul ODonovan, Fintan McCarthy, Emily Hegarty, who won an Olympic bronze medal in Tokyo, and Aoife Casey, a two-time Olympian who was in an Olympic final this year. Like they're your heroes, and as a youngster in Skip Rowing Club, you're in the exact same club on the same machines that they were, on the same river that they learned to row and race and become the best in the world. So it's kind of, I think what exciting for Skibbereen is that you'd hope that the wheel keeps turning, that success breeds success, as we know it does.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I came into this call with a list of names of potential kind of candidates for Ireland's greatest sports person, but it kind of looking through them now after speaking for Paul for whatever 20-25 minutes, it doesn't feel like any of them can really come close. But I think maybe one person that comes up a lot in these conversations, and somebody who is a little bit similar to Paul in terms of like their background and what they've done for a sport, is Katie Taylor. And again, she's somebody who has kind of done so much for boxing in Ireland. And Kelly Harrington, two-time Olympian, but she would give a lot of credit to Katie for where she is today. So that might be somebody who is in the conversation. Like you said at the start of the call, though, it's difficult to even compare these people, and it's probably not worth comparing them in some ways. But one thing I was wondering as well was, where do you think GAA comes into these kind of conversations? Because we speak about like these international sports with like soccer, or minority sports like rowing, which is big worldwide, or lots of countries participate in it worldwide. But GAA obviously is in such a particular position because we only play it here. I know there's a couple of clubs abroad, lots of clubs abroad in other countries, but it is the Irish sport. So for someone like Henry Shefflin now, as potentially the greatest hurler of all time, you kind of rarely see these people crop up in these kind of conversations. And do you think that's maybe just because we only play it here?
Probably right, yeah, kind of, because if you take it that, like, obviously GAA is very much an Irish sport, and if Henry Shefflin is the best hurler of all time, that means he's the best hurler in the world ever.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of magnify to that level. But I think kind of when you're talking about Ireland's greatest, like the GAA players would be in the conversation amongst the GAA community, but I always think about it kind of, like I said earlier, that transformative effect, but at a world level against the best in the world from other countries. And I think that's like Katie Taylor is a super show. Like I talk about transformative effect. What Katie's done for women's boxing in Ireland is incredible. Like she's kind of paved the path for the likes of Kelly Harrington and so on to follow. But I totally understand what you're saying from a GAA point of view. Like if David Clifford keeps doing what he's doing and some think he's the GOAT, he's the greatest Gaelic footballer of all time at the moment, like should he be in that conversation? And you can listen to the GAA community put that argument forward, and they'd have very kind of did a very good reasonings for putting him there. And I'd always kind of just point towards, well, a person like a Paul or a Roy Keane or a Sonia or a Katie, they did it at a world level, and that's not being dismissive of the GAA. Like it's our national sports, kind of, it's they're some of the most popular sports in the country. I think soccer is still number one, but the GAA is kind of quickly behind it. So like to definitely be in the conversation, but I don't think you can look beyond what Irish sports people have done on a world stage against the best in the world. I think that's a good barometer, I think, to kind of to start including people in this conversation.
Yeah, like you say, you can make the argument for a number of people, and depending on your favorite sport, you might make a different argument. And that's kind of part of the fun of the conversation as well, is seeing people's different opinions. So, is Paul O'Donovan the greatest Irish sports person of all time? We're saying yes. If anyone listening has any rebuttals or any opinions of their own, please get in touch. You can email digital@southernstar.ie, or leave us a comment on social media. We're running out of time now, Kieran, but there is a small matter of the Southern Star, which is in shops this Thursday and online as well. You're obviously writing about Paul in that edition, but what else can people look forward to?
Yeah, we've a piece. My column this week is about kind of role models in West Cork, and it almost ties into what we were saying there. I'm just saying that the people in West Cork are so lucky that we don't need to look beyond this region for the finest and best role models for our kids. That's because on Tuesday night we had a West Cork Sports Star presentation in the Celtic Ross Hotel. We actually had a bit of a backlog, so we had to present 4 awards, and in the same room on the same night you'd Olympic finalist Phil Healy, Olympian Nicola Tuttle, the goalie football captain Padraig Reedy, and All-Ireland camogie winner Ciara Sullivan. So you'd Colleen, Ballineen, Kilbrittain and Newcestown all represented in the one stage in the same night. And it just got me thinking on the drive home is, geez, we're so lucky. We're so lucky to have this caliber of people in the doing what they're doing on the biggest stages and being successful. So my column is just on that. We've actually have an interesting piece again on Skibbereen rowing. How a Westmeath woman called Aisling Hayes moved from the UK to West Cork just so she could row with Skibbereen. So we're talking about the transformative effect that Gary and Paul had, because when I was chatting to Aisling, it was actually in watching the lads in Rio in 2016 that kind of put it in her head to start rowing, and she's at it 8 years now. Now she's eventually moved to Skibbereen to row, and she won the intermediate singles sculls title at the National Rowing Championships. We have all the county championship hurling and Carberry hurling action, and there was a huge win for Diarmuid O'Mahony's over Clonakilty in the Carberry Junior A hurling, so that's well worth checking out. In the ladies football championships, Skibbereen, the All-Ireland Junior champions beat Neva Bawn in the intermediate. We have a report and reaction from that. The West Cork League is kicking off this weekend, and there's obviously our school by soccer coverage. Keith Cronin is in the British Rally Championship, so there's that and a lot more. It's packed. It's an absolutely action-packed sports section on Thursday.
Packed as always. And inside that sport, you can also find a free 16-page careers and courses supplement. Lots of tips in there for anyone seeking a job or thinking about their future in education. There's loads in there, so you can find that inside the sport this week. The Southern Star is in shops from Thursday morning. If you can't make it to the shops, you can subscribe online and get the Southern Star on your laptop, tablet or phone. Just head to southernstar.ie/subscribe, enter your details, and you'll get an exact replica of the newspaper for less than €2 per week, along with full access to our website as well. So as always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast. Please give us a rate, review, and subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts as well. Thank you to our sponsors at Access Credit Union, and we'll be back again next week with some more West Cork sport.